So this is our second video of Epitheus. Epitheus? Epitheus. I think it's Epitheus. It's probably not Epitheus. All right, this is the history of Islamic Iran explained in 10 minutes. And by the way, you know what the channel is because it literally tells you right there in the title. But this is our second video. We did the history of the rise and fall of the Sassanid Persian Empire. So this, of course, is the Islamic Iran explained in 10 minutes. Islamic Iran, in my opinion, not in my opinion, in my thoughts, are the republic that begins in 1979. However, it might not just be about that. So let's see what we got.
The Iranian plateau, bastion of mighty empires for millennia. The Elamites, Medes, Persians, Hellenistic Seleucids, Parthians, and Sasanians, all built venerable empires, each assimilating and building upon the technological, organizational, and cultural achievements of the former. The last three of these great empires rivaled the Roman Empire and waged bitter wars against it in a series of never-ending stalemates, resets, and standstills, over a period lasting more than 800 years. This ancient rivalry ended with both great civilizations being unexpectedly overwhelmed by the Arab Rashidun Caliphate. The Roman Empire managed to survive in a diminished form, while nearly all of Persia was absorbed into the Caliphate.
Yeah, and it didn't take a lot of time. It really didn't. It was a declining empire, by the way, that they killed.
The Dawood dynasty, claiming descent from the Sasanian Shahs, held out as an independent bastion for Iranian Zoroastrian faith for more than a century. They repulsed a major Umayyad invasion in 716 AD. The Umayyads had established their dynasty's leadership over the Muslim world after the First Muslim Civil War of 661. Iranian conversion to Islam was a lengthy process, taking several generations within the Caliphate. For the first few centuries of Islamic rule, the population of the Iranian plateau remained overwhelmingly Zoroastrian. The Abbasid Caliphate toppled the Umayyads in the Abbasid Revolution, and 10 years later, in 760, they would conquer the Dawood kingdom. The Caliphate.
So the Abbasids So the Abbasids. So the Abbasids conquered the Dawoodids.
Its Iranian population played a pivotal role in the overthrow of the Umayyads, and the Abbasid period was marked by a reliance on Persian bureaucrats for governing the conquered territories. During this time, the majority of the Caliphate converted to Islam. Persianate customs were broadly adopted by their ruling elite, who became patrons of artists, scientists, and scholars throughout the empire. The 7th Abbasid Caliph, Al-Mamun, whose mother was Persian, commented, "The Persians ruled for 1,000 years, and did not need us Arabs even for a day. We have been ruling them for 2 centuries, and cannot do without them for an hour."
So you got some Persian supremacy going on.
Less than 30 years after his death, the warlord Yaqub al-Safar, a Persian coppersmith from a small town in what is now Afghanistan, rebelled against the Abbasids, conquering a large portion of their empire.
Wow.
He was a recent convert to Islam. He and his successors avidly promoted the Islamic faith alongside Persian language and culture throughout their short-lived but pivotal empire. Shortly after this, Safarid territory was cannibalized by 2 Iranian dynasties, the Dalamite Buyids and the Samanid Empire. Both revived the use of the Persian language in state use and revived Sasanian court customs using.
So they kind of maybe nostalgically went back to some of the original stuff, the traditional Persian customs and Persian way of life, to kind of bring a little change to the recent progressive changes that the Abbasid Empire or Abbasid Caliphate has implemented. Maybe not intentionally, but over time.
The titles Shah and Shah, King of Kings. The Buyids claimed descent from the Sasanian Shah Bahram V, and for a short time were considered the leading power in the Islamic world. The Samanids spent great sums patronizing science and literature as the.
Whoa, that's crazy cool. The Bukhara fortress. That's crazy cool. How did they build it like that?
Buyids, and at its height it was said their capital of Bukhara rivaled Baghdad in its glory and scientific achievement. As the Samanid Empire became ever more cultured and wealthy, they began to employ slave armies of Turkic origin. This would be their own undoing, and they were overthrown by a family of Turkic slave guards, the Ghaznavids. These
Turkic slave guards. Dang, and they ruled for 200 years.
Slave soldiers turned sultans, fully assimilated into Persian culture with such enthusiasm that they outdid their ethnically Iranian counterparts, the Buyids. In the Ghaznavid royal court, hundreds of Persian poets were employed to compose, some paid to travel the empire, promoting Persian literacy. Large libraries were built, and agents sent to purchase and catalog Persian books and manuscripts, within and beyond the empire's borders. To the north, the Seljuk Turks, a nomadic people living on the periphery of the Muslim world, by the 11th century had converted to Islam, and an estimated 40,000 Seljuk families migrated from their ancestral homelands on the steppe into mainland Persia. In less than 20 years, these skilled horse archers would completely demoralize and defeat the Ghaznavid military, many times their size, utilizing hit-and-run tactics, and taking the Buyid capital of Baghdad. The alien Roman Empire was their next target, conquering Asia Minor and the Levant.
Yeah, the Seljuk Turks obviously precede the Mongol invasions that will come later, but yeah, this is the empire that rivaled the Crusades, that rivaled Constantinople, and so many other places for quite some time, as you can tell down there with that 160-year lifespan, at least, for the empires as like a completed force.
Like the Ghaznavids before them, these nomads quickly became Persianized in culture, although not in administration. In contrast to the highly centralized Buyid and Ghaznavid states, the massive Seljuk Empire was divided among squabbling family members who acted as autonomous rivals as often as members of the same state. During the Crusades, to retake the Holy Land, the Seljuk Turks were more concerned with their own dynastic rivalries than cooperating against the Crusaders or rival Fatimid or later Ayyubid Caliphates. The incessant squabbling of the Seljuks left them vulnerable. Their empire eventually fractured, and they were replaced in Iran by the Khwarezmian Empire, established by the son of a Turkish slave, turned governor appointed by the Seljuks. In the mid-13th century, Khwarezm was overwhelmed by the Mongol Empire.
Of course, as most places were, as you can see on the bottom left map. It's quite crazy how... And by the way, what does the pink mean? There's like pink here and there. Is that disputed territory? Is that like vassal state? But yeah, the Khwarezmian, yeah, the Khwarezmian Empire, so short-lived.
Largest contiguous empire in history. As Iran was recovering from the brutal conquest and destruction of several of its ancient cities under the rule of the Ilkhanate successor state in the 1330s, outbreaks of the Black Death ravaged the empire. In 1335, the Ilkhanate began to disintegrate rapidly and split up into several smaller rival successor states of the Mongols. Out of this chaos...
God dang! And this is where the Ottomans start to take over in the Anatolia area.
Patchwork of states arose the Turco-Mongol warlord Timur, also known as Tamerlane. He would unite the former states of...
Oh! The Timurid Empire, 1370-1507. You know, we haven't talked too much about this either.
The Ilkhanate, and envisioned himself as the great restorer of the Mongol Empire of Genghis Khan. And while not descended from Genghis, he regarded himself as Genghis' heir, and arguably surpassed him in brutality of his conquests, putting entire metropolis to the sword, and was known for building mountains of human skulls. As much as he was known for the obliteration of ancient cities, he was a patron of the arts and Persian culture. Scholars, artisans, and architects were spared in his vast conquests, taking them back to his capital of Samarkand to beautify that city. During the reigns of Timur's successors, the imperial court became increasingly Persianized and Islamized, until it bore no resemblance to their Mongol ancestors. By the year 1500, the Timurid Empire had fractured into several squabbling factions, and the Shia Safavid Empire established itself in the aftermath of this collapse. It was led by Shah Ismail I, who claimed direct descent from the Prophet Muhammad. Under the Safavids, the economy was fueled by stability, which allowed trade to thrive. The Safavid military was one of the first in the world to fully exploit the use of gunpowder.
Okay. It's interesting. So, in the world, to exploit the use of gunpowder, I'm guess when he says exploit, they went up against armies that did not have gunpowder.
And were long able to maintain the integrity of the empire's borders from the encroaching Ottoman Turks.
Yep.
It was the Safavids who made Iran the spiritual bastion of Shia Islam, and this period is considered to be a high point of cultural achievement and a high standard of living. In 1736, the Safavids were overthrown by the Turkic general Nader Shah, a brilliant military commander often compared to Napoleon and Alexander.
Wow.
The orphan son of a herdsman, he rose to become one of the most powerful men in the world.
That's a cool crown. That's a really cool crown.
The Afsharid dynasty was greatly reduced in power after his assassination in 1747, and would remain an autonomous region within the
Zand dynasty.
following Zand dynasty that ruled Iran for a short but prosperous period, where patronage for painters was emphasized. They were overthrown by the Qajar dynasty of Turkic origin, who, like most dynasties since the 11th century, rose to power with the backing of Turkic tribal forces, while using educated Persians in their bureaucracy. And after a series of wars with the Russians and British empires in the
My goodness, look how many Russo-Persian wars there were. 3 at least. And then the Anglo-Persian War. Wow.
19th century, the empire ceded territory to its north and east, and was brought approximately to its current modern borders. With the Russian conquest of the former Silk Road to China, and Britain's control of the Persian Gulf trade to India, the Persian economy entered a long, slow period of decline, and the state went nearly bankrupt. Despite these setbacks, the Qajar state adapted, massively slashing government expenditures across the board, and investing heavily in the modernization of the country. The Shahs increasingly fell under the influence of Britain and Russia, and a resentful populace instituted a constitutional monarchy and parliament after the Iranian constitutional revolution. During World War I, Persia was occupied by Russia, Britain, and the Ottoman Turks, further increasing foreign influence. And in February 1921, Reza Khan, commander of the Persian Cossack Brigade, staged a coup d'etat.
So this was the previous dynasty or administration prior to the 79 revolution. And this almost 54 years. 54 years, not too shabby. Longer than some of the other ones we were looking at just a second ago. But this is the coup d'etat, and this is more westernly aligned, I'm guessing.
And established himself as Shah of Iran. By 1951, the Shah was increasingly regulated to merely being a figurehead. At the time, 75% of Europe's oil came from Iran. The company that would become British Petroleum took the lion's share of the profits and gave a stipend to the Shah, who was
That's crazy. No state. I hate that. I really do. I know it's easy me in America to talk like, yeah, how could they do that? But still, like, how could they do that? Like, literally, they're extorting their wealth and not even giving back, like, appropriately.
Recently seen as a puppet of Britain. The Iranian Prime Minister, Mohammad Mossadegh, tried to negotiate a 50-50 split of oil profits with the oil company.
As he should. I mean, really. I mean, it should be more. 51-49 at least to Iran. But it's crazy.
This was flat out refused. Frustrated.
And the thing is, like, it's a security interest now. So, like, if you try to push the detail, you could get ousted, you could get assassinated, you could have military security detail come and protect the rightful assets and protect their citizens. This, a bunch of smoke and mirrors at that point.
Mossadegh then campaigned to nationalize the oil company, and in 1953 it was nationalized. That same year, in the partially declassified Operation Ajax, the CIA overthrew Mossadegh and installed the Shah as the supreme leader of Iran.
Yeah, probably not the best idea.
He let British oil do as it pleased and ruled with an iron fist. His secret police rounded up thousands. He would be overthrown in 1979 by the Ayatollah Khomeini, initially promising to uphold democracy and not to impose any strict Islamic law. Immediately after, Iraq invaded Iran in 1980 in response to Iran's support of Shia dissidents. It is estimated that over 1 million casualties were inflicted over the course of this lengthy
Crazy.
war. During the
We need to talk more about this one.
war, the clerical rule in Iran became increasingly authoritarian. The war ended in a stalemate, both sides claiming victory, with neither of the countries gaining territory. The Islamic Republic of Iran today is home to over 80 million people and remains at the heart of geopolitical events. This has been Epimetheus, and I hope you have enjoyed this overview.
Yeah, amazing as always. Second video done on this channel now. But yeah, Iran is probably one of the most, I don't know, I'm trying to find the words, misunderstood places just because everyone has a chronological biased history that's been embedded in them. And I'm not trying to be like you don't know what you read in school, blah 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 blah. Because I mean, I'm a novice historian. Like I'm not anybody that has a de facto arbiter of truth. But from my point of view, it seems like there's a huge bias in Western media when it comes to this place and what has occurred there and why these ideologies are so corrupt. Now, if there's moral like horrendous morals that are being morals, horrendous and that's all subjective. If there's horrendous things happening in any nation, we should be objective about that. We should have an objective morality built in a accumulation of history of shared values, because there is a lot of overlap with our shared values. Now there's a lot of differences there, whether it be religious, whether it be just traditional, but at the end of the day, we the thing about the nationalization and the coup d'etat in 1953, because of the nationalization of the oil companies, is disgusting on behalf of the United States. It's all profit capitalism driven, and I'm not saying capitalism is horrible. I'm just saying that is the root cause of this conflict, which we are now still paying for to this day in blood and troops and money. And this is continuing to the, what was it, the 12-day war that occurred this past year. So yeah, there's a lot more nuance there. There's a lot more gray there than I just suggested, but I appreciate you guys as always. I hope you have a great rest of your day. Peace out and bye-bye.